In Chapter 2, you create your very first shell script. This is the chapter where we get all the fundamentals in place. We learn how to create a simple script, save it, make it executable, test it, and run it. I'll also introduce two built-in shell commands that are used frequently within shell script programming that you probably haven't seen before. Let's begin. So let's create for ourselves a basic script. To do that, we simply need to create a text file and put in it the names of Unix programs or commands that we wish to run in sequence. Let's have a look at how that might look. The three commands could be pwd to print the working directory, do a ls to get a listing of the files in that directory, and then print today's date. We might assume that these are three things that you might like to do collectively together in sequence frequently throughout the day. And rather than type all three of them together, you can put them in a script, give the script a simple name, and then type the name of the script instead. In order for these three commands to be executed as a script, those three commands need to be put into a file, and that file needs to be made executable. Now, if you can't remember how to make a file executable, you do that using the chmod program. Chmod is short for change mode. It's a Unix security program. I'm not going to go into the details of chmod just here, but I will show you how to make any program executable. This is how you do it. Let's say your script was called myscript. To make it executable, you would type in chmod, then a space, then plus x for executable, and plus to meaning to add executable permission, then a space, and then the name of the file that you wish to modify the permission on, which of course in this case would be myscript. Let's go and do exactly that. I'll do it on the screen, step by step, and I suggest that you, if you can, in your own Unix. Firstly, we will create the file. I'm going to use the text editor vi, so I'll call it vi myscript, like that. And as you can see, it is a new file. And then I'll add the lines pwd, ls-c, and then date. And that's it. Now I'll save the file and quit out of the editing session. And now, of course, the final step is to make the program executable. Again, I do that using chmod plus x myscript. Okay, I don't get any error messages, so it's obviously worked. Now we can find out how to run the script. In order to run this new file as an executable program, you simply type /myscript. That is making the assumption that the script or the file myscript that you want to run is actually in the current directory. It's in the same directory that you are. Let's break that down a bit. The dot means the current directory, and /myscript means look for the file called myscript in the current directory and execute it. Let's try that. Type in /myscript, and we get three things. We get three lines. The first line is the current directory, pwd output. The second line is the output of the ls-c command. And of course the third one is the output of the date. So the script is working. Now there is a slightly shorter way of getting the script to run, but that depends on the fact that the directory that the script is in your path. If the directory is in your path, then you can abbreviate this further to just simply type in myscript. Let's have a look at that. Now, how do I find out my script? Well, you'll learn this later, but if you don't know it now, type in echo $path. That'll tell me the current path. Now, what I'm looking for is this current directory in the path? Now, you have a bit of a look yourself and see if you can find whether it is or not. The answer is yes, it is. It's a bit of a trick question, actually. I know you can't see anything in that list of directories there. It contains the word course, which is obviously the name of this directory. But here's a little known fact: if your path begins or ends with a colon, then your path is said to include the current directory, either at the beginning or the end. So the MyScript program is actually in the current directory, which means it will run if we simply type in MyScript. So let's do that, MyScript, and there it is, exactly as before. Now, all of that I just did depends on you having a reasonable understanding of what the path is. If you didn't understand what the path is, then all of that stuff I did with the echo path and all that sort of stuff would have been quite mysterious. Never mind, we are going to cover the path in enough detail in one of the next few modules. What I really wanted to show you in this particular chapter is that if your path is set up correctly, then you can execute the shell script that you have created simply by typing its name. You don't need to worry about the / at the beginning of it. Let's move on. It is important to note that absolutely any Unix command may be added to a script. That means that anything that you can type in on the shell command line can be put into a script. Absolutely anything. And the reverse is true, and most people neglect to realize this, that any lines of text that you find in a working Unix shell script can actually be typed on the shell command line, and they'll work just as well. And that includes obscure things like if statements, loops, comments, and so on. They'll all have the same effect on the shell command line as they did in the script itself. Now, what we're actually going to be looking at for the duration of this entire course are special internal shell commands and features of the shell that have little use outside scripts. In other words, if you're a regular user of the Unix shell, you probably haven't encountered these commands and features yet. They're only useful for scripting. So the bulk of the course will be taken up explaining those. Obviously we'll also have a look at some Unix programs, such as test and expr, that were written specifically to be used in conjunction with shell scripting. And we're going to begin immediately. The very next module details one of the internal shell commands that you probably would not encounter if you weren't learning about shell scripting. It's called echo, and it is the subject of the next module. This module deals with the command called echo. Echo is a shell built-in command. We call them shell built-ins for short. This means that there is actually not an executable file called echo anywhere on your Unix system. Instead, when you type in the word echo on the command line or use it in a shell script, the shell processes that command wholly internally. No extra program is needed. So what does it do? Well, its function is very simple. It's one of the simplest programs there is. Any command line parameters of echo are written to standard output. If you like, they are echoed to standard output. It's a bit like a print statement, or if you're a C programmer, a printf statement. If no parameters are given, then a blank line is simply output. So, that's what it does. Now, why would we use it? What's the point of having it? Well, we primarily use it to display messages to the users of the script. Let's have a look at an example of that. At the $prompt we might type in echo, my name is Mark, and then of course the echo program would simply create one line of output called my name is Mark, whereupon it would terminate and the shell would offer you another command prompt. Let's have a look at some examples of where and how you might use that. Well, if we just use it on the shell command line by itself, it's not extremely useful. We can simply say echo hello there, and of course we get a line that just says hello there by itself. Echo by itself without any command line parameters gives us a blank line, as you can see. It's only when we start to use it within shell scripts that it actually becomes useful. Let's open up our MyScript program and modify that so that it includes a line of echo. So I might do it just here above the last line of the file, and I might put the word echo in there as well. The current date and time is, and then a colon, and then of course we would get the date. And right at the top we might do a similar thing, except instead of saying the current date and time, we might say directory, like so. Okay, the file is saved. I'll now quit and run it again, and this time I get 5 lines of output: the current directory, which is then followed by obviously the current directory, then the contents of the directory, and then the current date and time. Now it's still a little bit bunched up, so let's try again. Let's go back into my script and do it a little bit differently. After we do the pwd command, let's do echo, and then that'll create a blank line, and then we can say the contents of the directory are, and then that, and then we'll do another blank line just to separate the 3 different outputs. And let's save that and run it. And now the output's looking a little bit more user-friendly. Rather than 3 unexplained lines simply appearing on our display, we've broken them up now into 3 different sections, and each section has been explained, all through the use of the echo command. Echo also comes in very handy when we're displaying the value of variables, but we don't know what variables are yet. We'll have to wait to the next chapter or two before we discover variables. Anyway, that's it for echo for now.